The first few days after that night were the hardest. Every vibration of her phone felt like it might be him. Every step outside reminded her of how often he used to walk beside her in silence. The kind of silence that she once found comforting and now found suffocating. So she decided not to reach out. Not because she wanted to punish him, but because she didn't know how to talk to him anymore. And when Taehyung texted, busy today, she stared at the screen for a long time before locking it and setting it aside. That's how it began. One unanswered text became two. Two became four, a few missed calls, a couple of half hearted "You okay?" messages from him that she couldn't bring herself to reply to. She wasn't ready, and strangely, he didn't push. He didn't come after her or demand explanations. He didn't even sound upset. That hurt more than she wanted to admit. Two weeks later, there was a knock on her door, a firm one. Wan looked up from her laptop, startled. She wasn't expecting anyone. When she opened the door, she froze. Taehyung stood there, hands in his pocket, hoodie pulled up, hair a little messy like he hadn't slept much. For a moment, neither spoke. Then he broke the silence with a quiet, "Can I come in?" She hesitated. Her pulse quickened, but she stepped aside. "Yeah." He walked in slowly, glancing around like the place had changed, even though it hadn't. The air just felt different now. He didn't sit down right away. Instead, he lingered by the table, his eyes falling briefly on the wilted flowers he'd given her weeks ago. "So," he began, scratching the back of his neck, "you've been ignoring me?" She looked down at her hands. "I've been busy." His jaw tightened slightly. "You're lying." Wine didn't deny it.
Let out a small exhale, then looked at her. Really looked at her for the first time in weeks. Did I do something? The question was simple. The answer was not. She swallowed hard. Yes, he blinked. Okay, then tell me. Yen took a deep breath, her voice quiet but steady. Taehyung, I think we should stop. He frowned, not quite processing. Stop what? This? She said softly, gesturing between them. Us. His face didn't change much, no dramatic reaction, no visible shock, but his eyes darkened slightly. You're breaking up with me? Yes. A long silence stretched between them. He finally leaned against the table, arms crossed loosely, watching her like he was trying to understand a language he hadn't learned. Why now? She hesitated. Because I know. His brows furrowed. Know what? Yen's throat tightened, but she held his gaze. About the letters. Taeyong froze. She could see it. the way his shoulders tensed, the faint flicker of guilt that crossed his expression. I didn't mean to read them, she whispered quickly, but I found them by accident. I didn't even want to. He interrupted quietly. You read them all? Enough? She said. Silence. The kind of silence that wasn't just quiet. It was heavy, filled with the weight of everything unspoken. Taehyung's jaw clenched. I see. Yen stepped closer, her voice trembling but firm. Taehyung, I'm not angry. I understand now. Why you were so cold. Why you always seemed like you were here, but not really here. He looked down at the floor, saying nothing. I get it, she continued softly. You were hurting. You lost someone you couldn't forget, and maybe I came at the wrong time. Taehyung's hands tightened around the edge of the table. Yen? No, she said, shaking her head gently. Don't say it, because I don't want you to lie, even if it's out of kindness. His eyes lifted slowly to hers. I wasn't lying. Her lips trembled. You wrote that you used me to move on. He flinched, guilt flashing through his eyes. That was before. Before what? She whispered. Before you started pretending you loved me? He sighed, voice low. I didn't pretend. But you did, she said, more firmly now. You didn't love me, Taehyung. You loved the idea of me, the distraction, the comfort. I was just, she exhaled shakily, a way for you to feel less alone. Taehyung opened his mouth, then closed it again. He had no defense, no words that wouldn't sound crueler when spoken aloud. Her eyes softened, even through the tears threatening to fall. You're not a bad person. You were just broken. But I can't keep trying to fix something that doesn't want to heal. He looked at her quietly, his expression unreadable. You really think I don't want to heal? I think you don't know how yet, she said softly. And that's okay. But I can't be the one you lean on while you figure it out. Taehyung's voice dropped. Almost a whisper. So that's it? Yen nodded slowly. That's it. He stared at her for a long moment, searching, maybe hoping she'd change her mind. But she didn't. Finally, he nodded once, pushing off the table. Okay. She blinked, surprised at how quiet he sounded. Okay? He gave a small, tired smile, the kind that didn't reach his eyes. If that's what you want, Yen shook her head weakly. It's not what I want, Taehyung. It's what's right. He nodded again, eyes glistening faintly under the dim light. Then I won't argue. He moved toward the door slowly. She followed him, every step feeling heavier than the last. At the doorway, he paused. Yen, he said softly. Yeah? He hesitated. Just a heartbeat too long, before whispering, I'm sorry. And then he left. The door closed quietly behind him. No slamming, no shouting, just the soft sound of something ending. A week passed. No calls, no texts, nothing. Yen kept expecting something. Maybe an explanation, maybe an apology longer than 2 words. But Taehyung was gone from her life as quietly as he had entered it. It was strange how silence could hurt more than noise. She busied herself with college, with friends, with everything that wasn't him. But sometimes, when her phone lit up with a random notification, her heart still jumped before her mind reminded her, he's not coming back. Until one morning. A small brown envelope sat outside her door. Her name was written across it in Taehyung's handwriting. Her fingers trembled as she picked it up. She hesitated, afraid of what it might say, but curiosity, that same cruel force that had once led her to his hidden box, won again. She opened it. Inside was a neatly folded letter. Dear Yen, if you're reading this, that means I finally found the courage to write something honest. Something I should have written a long time ago. First, I want to say thank you. Not for staying, but for leaving. You were right. I wasn't ready. I thought I was, but all I did was bury the past under someone else's kindness. I tried to love you with half a heart, and that wasn't fair to you, or to me. After you left, I realized something. I've spent years running from grief, pretending it didn't control me. But it did. I let it, and I used you as a shield from it. I started therapy last week. My therapist asked me what I wanted to achieve. I told him I wanted to learn how to stop looking backward. He smiled and said, "That's a good start." So here I am, trying to start. He also asked me if there was someone I wanted to apologize to properly, and I said your name. He told me to write it down instead of saying it. So that's what this letter is. An apology, a thank you, and maybe a promise. I'm sorry for making you doubt yourself. You were never a rebound YN. You were the first person who made me realize I needed to heal. You were the mirror that showed me how broken I was, and the light that showed me it was okay to start fixing it. I won't ask for forgiveness because I don't deserve it yet. But I will ask you to know this. I never meant to hurt you. I just didn't know any better. You said you couldn't be the one I leaned on while I figured things out, and you were right. But someday, when I finally learned how to stand on my own, I'll send you another letter. Maybe it'll tell you about how therapy's going or how the world looks when I finally stop living in the past. Until then, I'll keep writing. Not to you, but for you, because you're the reason I started to understand myself. Thank you for being my wake-up call. And if the universe ever lets me meet you again, as someone healed, not hurting, I hope I can say your name without guilt attached to it. Taehyung? Ian stared at the letter for a long time, her heart caught somewhere between ache and peace. There was no plea for another chance, no dramatic confession, just quiet honesty, the kind she had once wished he'd given her when they were together. Her fingers brushed over his name at the bottom, and for the first time she smiled. It was small, soft, sad but warm, because maybe this was what love was supposed to look like when it grew up, not desperate or unfinished, but real enough to let go. She folded the letter carefully, placed it back into the envelope, and set it beside her window, where the evening light poured in. The wind brushed against her face, and for a fleeting moment, she could almost hear his voice again. Not cold, not distant, just gentle. 2 weeks later, another letter arrived. This one had no return address, no fancy words, just her name in that same familiar handwriting. She smiled faintly before opening it. Dear YN, therapy's strange. My therapist makes me talk about things I never said out loud before. Yesterday he asked me, "What did YN teach you?" I said, "She taught me that love isn't about filling the empty spaces. It's about learning to live with them." He smiled again. He smiles a lot. Says I sound wiser when I talk about you. Anyway, I thought you should know that I'm learning. Slowly. Some days I feel like I'm moving backward, but I keep your words in my head. You can't fix someone who doesn't want to heal. So I'm trying. For me this time. If you're wondering why I'm writing, it's because I promised I would. Don't worry. You don't have to reply. Just let me write. It helps me breathe. Thank you again for being kind even when I didn't deserve it. I hope you're smiling when you read this. She was, because somehow, even through the ache, there was peace. Yen folded the letter and placed it with the first one. 2 letters now, both soft, both carrying the weight of a goodbye that wasn't bitter. She looked out the window at the fading sunset, the same sun that had witnessed the night she cried on his bed, now washing her room in gold. Maybe this was what closure looked like. Not an ending, but a quiet acceptance that sometimes love teaches before it stays. She whispered softly, almost to herself, "Thank you, Taehyung." And somewhere across the city, maybe in a small therapy room with soft music and a nervous smile, Taehyung was learning to forgive himself, too. Epilogue, 3 months later. There were 3 letters now. The third one arrived with a small sketch attached, a drawing of 2 figures standing on opposite sides of a bridge, reaching out but not touching. Underneath it, he had written, "Some distances are meant for healing, not closing." And Wyan knew. This was the last one. She smiled through tears and folded it neatly with the others, placing them in a box of her own. A box she didn't hide, but kept by her window where sunlight could touch it every morning,